Before we go,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
and there's one error on the minutes from last time. I've got Councillor Pringle in the top bit, which should be Councillor Smith.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Okay, lovely. Thanks a lot, Steve. Welcome members of the public who may be watching to the Development Management Committee for Wednesday, the 23rd of June. Sorry, a bit late. That's my fault. Just to say, I'm just going to run through how we go through each application for members of the public, so you just understand the process. When we get to the application, the case officer will present. Sorry.
Are we okay with those jackets?
Sorry.
Are we? Is jackets excused?
Yeah. You've got to keep your time. Yeah. No, of course, Burns. Yeah, sorry. Only, Anyway, no. So just go back to that. So the case officer will present the application, and then we will have speakers on the application for or against town council and local ward members. On each occasion when people have spoken, members of the committee will ask points for clarification. Once the case officer and all the other speakers have spoken on it, we will then move into debate, and at some point a member of the committee will propose, make a proposal, that will be seconded, and then we'll vote on that, and that's how the applications will be decided. I think that covers everything. Very good. Right, in which case we'll move on to the agenda itself now. Agenda item 1, the minutes. And there was a correction to the minutes, and that is that Councillor Smurden was here. So it's not Councillor Pringle, but in fact it was Councillor Smurden who was present in the replacement. So thanks for that. Also, thank you, Councillor Smurden, for filling in for Councillor Brown, who sent us apologies. But Councillor Smurden, who was at the site visit on Monday as well, although that application is now being withdrawn. Item 2, urgent business. I've got no urgent business. No. Item 3, division of the agenda. I don't think we're going to be discussing any exempt information. Item 4, declarations of interest, members.
Please, Chairman.
Yeah.
Might do a personal interest for 6B, please. And the reason being that we buy our fuel from that garage.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Reid. Any other members? I can't see, so do shout with the reflection on the
Julian, I've got an interest in the same one actually, because I went to school with the chap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a personal interest.
Is that a personal? I
That's
wasn't
a
that
personal
interested, I can tell you.
This is the terminology. Anyone else know? In which case, agenda item 5, public participation. I do have a list of speakers. I'll call them as and when their application is being discussed, and that's so. Item 6, planning applications. Item 6A has been deferred, withdrawn. Item 6B, Topness Cross. Sorry, I can't see you.
You'll have to show.
Chair, can I just come in for a second on the first one? The application itself, just to clarify, the application itself hasn't been withdrawn. The applicant is looking to make some revisions following some further discussions with the neighbour. So it's just been deferred from this meeting, but we'll come back to a meeting in the future.
Thank you. So that's, sorry, yeah, to make sure that that's right, so it's been deferred, not withdrawn. Just to make that clear. So we'll move on to Topness Cross. Who's the planning officer? Oh, it's Miss Haslander. Yeah, there you are. Sorry.
Too many screens.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Miss Haslander, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. This application is at Totnes Cross Garage, Holwell, and it's for extension of the facilities, both the shop and additional workshops at the rear of the existing site. The first image you'll see indicates the location of the application site. Just for clarity, this is the road from Totnes coming up, so use the pointer. So this is the road coming up from Totnes, this is the road out towards Dartmouth, and this is the road that leads towards Kingsbridge, and this is the site. The next one, so the same scenario with a Google Maps image. These are images of the site itself. So the building you see on the left of the photograph is the existing workshop to the premises, and this is the field where the proposals are to be situated. And this is moving up the field and moving up the field again. I'll just show you also the existing site plan. So it's quite difficult to see. Sorry, it's not a very good image. It's quite hard to get the field and the site within the image. But if I point out, this is the canopy here over the existing petrol filling station. This is the building at the rear, which incorporates the shop and payment for the fuel. And this is the existing bungalow on site here. And obviously at the moment people enter in this direction and leave from this direction. And the junction, effectively, this is the road to Dartmouth, and the junction down here is the road from Totnes and then into Kingsbridge. This is an image showing the workshop element as it is existing, able to accommodate approximately 2 cars, possibly a couple more out front. And this is the road to Dartmouth. The reason this image is here is because the application proposes a new access approximately where the pointer is into the field at the back, which you'll be able to see in the next image, which shows the proposed site layout. So this is the proposed site layout. So at the bottom here you can see the existing development, the bungalow and the existing shop stroke payment for fuel. And this element in pink at the bottom here is the shop extended and a cafe facility, and also outside seating for the cafe here. There's about 13 spaces, 12 or 13 spaces here for the cafe shop use. And then the proposed workshop, so the workshop is currently in here, it's going to be moved to the back of the site here, indicating 6 bays and additional parking along the roadside, the rear of the roadside hedge. In addition, a landscaping scheme is proposed in this area to act as screening for the development. Moving on now to the elevations. So this is the elevation if you were standing in the field opposite the garage, effectively. So you've got the canopy, the existing building, the bungalow, and the workshop, and you can just see the extended workshop at the back, and also I think that element there is the workshops further back up the field. This elevation shows the view as if you're approaching from Totnes, again with the canopy, the bungalow, the extension to the shop and cafe here. This elevation is the one if you're on the road towards Dartmouth, and again canopy, existing building, shop element. There's another image later on to show the workshops. These images don't show the workshops. And this one is the opposite, looking back at the site from the field, if you like. So this is the proposed shop extension and cafe and the existing bungalow here. This is just enlarged images, so I'll just move on to the workshop element. This is the workshop proposed. It's effectively 2 stories. There's an office area at the top in the first floor, and these service bays are on the ground floor, extending into that space as well. You can see down here there's an image of obviously a car being raised up in order to be able to work on the underneath side. So this is an elevation showing the workshops. So again, this is looking from the Dartmouth Road. There's the canopy, proposed extension to the shop, and then the workshops back here. The application also included the landscaping scheme, as said previously. So it includes some additional planting. This area here is proposed as woodland, and obviously these additional trees are proposed around the edge of the proposed development, as well as increasing trees. Well, in fact, actually, this is a gap in the field currently, so there'll be a new hedgerow there with trees in it, and additional trees in other areas around the site. I just wanted to look at the sort of road towards Dartmouth, and that where the access will be. It's about 30 metres from the back of the existing workshop, so approximately about here, and it will go in, and the proposed shop extension will be in this area, so we'll be in this area, and then the workshop's further up the field. So this is the green field just here that development will be within. Just taking a photograph slightly further away, just showing the existing site and the field, and the area where the proposed development will sit is, as you can see, this gap in the hedge here. It's in the area sort of below that gap. So the extension to the shop will extend out here, and the workshops will be sort of back here. This is one that's just slightly showing the sort of surrounding landscape, if you like. There is a barn associated with a farm up here, and this is the Holwell industrial estate site, about a third of a kilometre away from the proposal site. And this is just another one, similar sort of image, just showing the landscape in general. Okay, so it appears like my slides have disappeared. I had some slides of some of the photographs, but I think we've shown sufficient for now. Before I go into the main presentation, just to highlight a couple of things that have happened since the planning report's been written. Firstly, I neglected to see that there was an energy statement recently submitted, which actually does indicate that there are carbon reduction measures proposed for the site, and that includes a fabric first aspect to the design of the proposal, an air source heat pump, and a 4 kilowatt photovoltaic panel on the site. That does achieve the 20% below building regs, which is what is required from Policy Dev 32. So as such, reason refusal number 5 is no longer valid, just for your information. We've also received a further 63 letters of support for the application since the report was written, and one objection. The letters of support are reiterating the summary of the support within my planning report, and the objection refers to the fact that he thinks that the intersection is going to be more dangerous as a result of the development proposed, so the intersection with the 3 roads. So in terms of the issues that the members need to consider, clearly there are sort of some key issues through the report. The first one is with regard to the principle of the development. The principle is reviewed in the report against the strategic policies in the plan, which are SPT1, SPT2, TTV1, which indicate that this site is within the countryside, and therefore it's not an area where we would look to necessarily encourage additional development of this nature. The report indicates that the proposal is contrary to policy TTV 26, which is the development in the countryside policy. So in terms of principle, the other issue to be considering is policy Dev 15, which is the support for rural businesses. Policy is quite, in the report, I sort of go into quite a lot of detail about the wording in the policy and refer to the fact that is this a suitable location for the expansion, the nature of expansion that is being proposed here, as stated in the report, it is considered by officers that this location is an unsustainable location, and I suppose in that sense, members maybe need to think about whether it meets the economic, the social, and the environmental requirements in policy SBT 1. The other word which is quite important in policy Dev 15 is appropriate, and the issue with officers have is it's a very large workshop. Currently there's a workshop for 2 cars. The extended workshop is considerably larger. The shop also has probably expanded 2- or 3-fold, and it's not in a sustainable location. Is this the appropriate location for a new shop and cafe? And the other issue that we need to consider is proportionate. The nature of the changes increase the land take of this site quite considerably. And actually, the reality is that if permitted, they would actually dwarf the existing facilities on the site. So there is an issue about scale, which I would ask members to think about. In Policy Dev 15, there's a Part 8 asks all development within the rural areas to comply with the criteria within it. One of which is to ensure that not too many trips by private car is a result of the development. Well, clearly there would be an increase in trips, both by passing trade and possibly local villages. And the issue that we have with Policy Dev 15 is that the policy requires for such developments to submit a sustainable travel plan. No such plan was provided in this case, and so it's very difficult for us to be able to assess what the traffic impacts will be as a result of the development, and indeed whether there's any mitigation to those traffic impacts. So we don't have the information, in my view, to approve it until unless we've had a sustainable travel plan, and it's a requirement of policy. The other issue in terms of the development against Dev 15 is the relationship of the buildings to each other. And whilst they are relatively close, in officers' view, the workshops are sort of set away from the sort of cluster of buildings on the site. I'll just show you on the plan. So by parking, and whether actually it would be better if the workshop was closer to the existing buildings and perhaps reduced in scale, and then the impact in terms of landscape would be less. So we can move on now to the second issue with this development, and it's the impact on the landscape. There was a landscape and visual impact assessment submitted with the application, and whilst it posed some mitigation measures, it did also acknowledge that there would be a cumulative negative impact in certain areas from the development. The industrial scale of the building was one of the issues that was mentioned. The landscape officer reviewed the LVIA and also the plans and came to the conclusion that the development would be contrary to Policy Dev 23, which requires development to both conserve and enhance the landscape quality. Now, whilst this isn't an area where there's any landscape designations, it is in an area where the landscape is quite attractive, and decreased development in this sort of location may not be the most appropriate thing. It's not the appropriate thing, and the landscape officer recommended refusal for the development. The other issue which is outstanding and possibly could be overcome is with regard to the ecology survey. There was an ecology survey done with development, however, the survey recommendation was that dormouse surveys should be further undertaken before any planning permission is granted. No such surveys were submitted, and so therefore that's why there's another reason for refusal in relation to ecology, because we haven't those surveys have not been submitted for us to consider. So members, yes, there's two issues effectively: the principle of development and also the landscape impact. And I would ask you to consider both. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Houselander. Members, any questions for the planning officer? Councillor Pannell.
Yeah, you referred to the industrial, what's the technical, is it an industrial estate or a employment?
The one
Just up the road,
yeah.
yeah, what's it called?
I think it's Hall, I think it's Hall Business
Hall.
Park.
Whole business park.
Yeah.
Would there be any scope for a development of the workshops, do you know, on this? Is there space for a development of that sort up at the business park?
I can answer that.
Okay.
There is a current planning application in for a relatively small building on the Hall Business Park, but my recollection of the site is that's probably the last piece of space within the existing confines of the site. And I think any additional building on that side would likely to spill over into the next field down. That's my recollection of the site, but I haven't been to that site for probably 3 or 4 years. But I know we've got one application there at the moment, but I don't think it's to the scale of this building.
Okay, thank you.
Can we keep the picture up, Jacqueline,
Oh, yes.
of it from a distance?
Councillor Kent, did you want to ask a question, or was it you just wanted to?
I wanted to know how much taller that building's going to be. Is it going to be much taller than what's there already, or are they going long and low?
Well, the workshop is 2 stories in height, it's 6 metres. So because it's flat roof,
Yeah.
it would probably be roughly the same height as the roof of the existing bungalow, but because it's slightly higher up the hill, it would be visible from this location.
Right.
It's sort of basically extending into this area here.
Okay. And did you say they're going to be planting some woodland?
Yes.
So is it from that hedge with the 2 trees stuck in it? If you look at that hedge with the 2 trees stuck in it, is that all their bit as well, or is it just the bit behind, directly behind?
So the landscaping would go into, if I just go back to the landscape.
So they've got that whole field?
So there are the 2 trees,
All right, okay.
so it's in there, so they'd be planting woodland in there.
Oh, I see. So they're changing it to, right, okay. I get it.
I think what members need to think about in terms of that landscaping is that appropriate landscaping in this locality? It's generally fields with hedgerows and trees in the hedgerows as opposed to a big amount of woodland.
Yeah, but I think it would sit in quite nicely then. Nice bit of woodland.
Okay, right. You got that clear in mind?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And any other, Councillor Snowden?
Just with regard to item 4, the dormice, the place where you're most likely to find the dormice is going to be in the hedgerow.
Yeah.
They're not going to be in the open field. And the only bit of hedgerow that's likely to be affected is a small bit that's going to be taken out when. And I mean, from my experience, when that type of development happens, if you have an ecologist on site, they can make sure that there are no dormice in the particular part where the hedgerow is removed. So I don't see that as a major problem.
It is an issue that possibly could be overcome if we didn't have that information, and we do need that before because they're a protected species, we can't recommend approval on that basis.
So they need to do a survey first to see.
Yeah, right. I think if it's approved, they will have to do a dormouse survey. On
That's
the
fine.
if
Yep.
that's what they're going to do.
I accept
That
that.
would be one of the sort of
Yep.
pre-commencing conditions, I presume. Is that right?
Chair, can I come in on that point?
Yeah.
I mean, if it does proceed towards an approval, and on this specific point, my suggestion would be that it be subject to us receiving a survey and any mitigation that's acceptable before. I don't think it could be a condition. It would have to be resolved before any decision is issued.
I understand.
Okay. Clear that one. Members, any other questions? I've got a couple of questions, if I may. In the landscape specialist report, it says in the second paragraph, no, in the third paragraph, it says, and visually with proposed development in place together with the existing parallel business park, together with the farm shop building to the north. Is there a farm shop in that area?
No, there isn't.
Not as far as I'm aware, no.
No, so when they say, what do they mean? Do you know what they mean by
No.
farm shop building to the north of the site?
I don't know if he meant the barn here. Up here. I don't know if that's what he meant.
That's to the north.
That's a lemon shed.
Okay. Right. Okay, any other questions? No, in which case we will move to the speakers. Support, we don't have an objector, so just to support
Mr. Hollis first.
Mr. Hollis, yeah, please. Do we know if the sound is okay? I know there was a problem with it last. It's okay now.
It's going fine, yeah.
Yeah.
It was interference from mobile phones before.
Right, okay.
We don't have any today, so it's good.
What if you just sort of stand
Do you
by
want
this
me to turn it off?
and then Chairman.
Hello, Mr. Hollis. I'm over here. Bruce.
Hello,
Sorry
good
about
morning.
that. Sorry about the weird.
That's okay, I'll do my best.
Yeah, okay. Lovely.
Just like to say hello and good morning to everyone. The business has been in operation for over 70 years, and 48 years under the ownership of our family. My father worked there as a young man and was able to purchase it in 1973. In that time, we've seen huge changes, and the impact of the motor vehicle has made us busier and busier. The shop, petrol station, and MOT bay and workshop all have a very loyal local customer base. We have been overwhelmed by the support we have received from our customers and local community in relation to this application. They tell us it's what they want: a bigger shop, more local produce, more space to park, and a better workshop service. Our application has gained over 90 letters of support on the planning portal in a matter of days, before the link to the comments stopped working, leaving a large number of our customers unable to express their support. It's been a long process to arrive before you today, with a huge amount of time and money having gone into this application. Starting with a pre-app in 2017, at that time we received an encouraging response. In 2019 we submitted our application in the full belief that a journey of a better Totnes Cross for all had begun. Almost 2 years later, we are told that our application fails because it doesn't meet every policy. But the council must balance things, and I believe the positives of this application hugely outweigh any negatives. I was raised with the belief that small businesses are the backbone of the rural community, and I have worked hard to sustain and grow Totnes Cross. We have become victims of our own success by listening to our customers and providing the services that they request, such as a hugely successful parcel service handling in excess of 500 parcels per week. We've also been approached by Royal Mail requesting the potential of a post office on site. Our struggle with space has been compounded over the last year and a half when the world suddenly found itself in the grips of a pandemic, and precautions such as 2 metre social distancing were introduced. Not an easy situation for our staff and customers in an oversubscribed space. During this period, the strength and importance of the local shop and car repairs was highlighted, By using local producers, we had fully stocked shelves full of local goods when a lot of the majors had empty shelves. Our staff ran a free delivery service to our most vulnerable customers. The shop and workshop stayed open to the local community with priority for key workers, and my staff have had hardly any time off during this pandemic. My belief is that we are a true local business and the community will benefit from the expansion, including the creation of 10 to 15 new full-time positions for local people rurally where employment is scarce. As for increasing journeys, I disagree. Keeping local facilities does the opposite and reduces many unnecessary journeys for the people in the villages and countryside close to us. Our workshop has remained the same size since it was expanded in 1980. Vehicles have got bigger and MOT rules are stricter, and my dedicated staff deserve a better workspace. The workshop side employs four full-time local workers and 2 apprentices with South Devon College. We will take on a 3rd apprentice if we can extend. Quickly turning to the reasons for refusal. The policy is forcing everyone to go into major towns and neglect the countryside. That doesn't make sense. The case officer still refers to the cafes several times in her reasons for refusal, but this has been removed from the plans. The shop and workshop are the important bits for me. Landscaping is subjective, but please look at our context next to the now very large Harwell Business Park. Andrew Rathbourne has produced a professional and considered plan. He is well respected locally and has helped me produce a scheme which includes more hedges and a new woodland, which is all an improvement on an existing blank field. I've submitted 2 ecology reports and this is the first mention of dormice. My ecologist is adamant that there is no evidence to justify this reason. I have submitted a report and calculations by Avon Energy surveyors who conclude that this proposal fully complies with DEV 32. I do appreciate that matter has already been covered this morning. I would like to thank Councillor Reeve for requesting for our application to be heard at today's committee and for the full support of our parish. And I'd also like to thank you all for listening today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hollis. Members, any questions? So, Councillor Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. Bearing in mind the way that things are moving with regard to vehicles, etc., would you consider at some time an electric vehicle charging point?
The plans do actually show 2 electric car charging points on the plans.
Right, apologise if I missed that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councillor Kemp.
Can you just clarify about the cafe? So is there or isn't there a cafe?
No, because the council were unhappy with the cafe, we removed it from the plans.
Okay, so it's a farm shop.
Yeah, I will say my family did run a cafe from the site for 20 years.
Did it?
Very successfully, which we had to give up due to more motor vehicles and a lack of space. So
Right,
it was sort of something that my mum and dad did, and I wanted to reintroduce to the site. But obviously, space is paramount, and obviously what our customers want is of utmost importance to us.
Okay, and you'll be stocking lots of local produce,
Yeah,
etc.
that-
like you do at California
yes.
Cross.
Exactly as we do
Okay.
at California Cross.
Okie dokie then, thank you.
Councillor Pannell.
The planning officer mentioned that one of the reasons for objection is that the workshop is sited some distance away and up the hill, making it more visible from the existing buildings. Is there a reason why you've done that, and is there a reason why you couldn't have the workshop much nearer, especially as you're not now having a cafe? Could you bring the workshop much nearer to the existing buildings?
The idea is both businesses require a certain amount of space and parking to provide for each business, and we were under the impression that we needed to potentially keep that separate so there wasn't confusion amongst it, and obviously trying to create a safer working environment, certainly under the restrictions that we've been operating under in the last few years. where space has become a paramount. You know, the site was designed with safety really being at the forefront of our decisions, and it's obviously, when the casework was shown on the field, it is in only the lower part, it's not in the higher
Doesn't go
part.
up the
No,
Okay.
it could have been slightly misrepresented in that.
Right. Members, any more questions? Mr. Hollis, I've got some questions. It's going back to the local produce bit. What percentage do you reckon of local produce have you got selling? Because obviously it's a Spar shop as it is.
A Spar shop, and the reason that we've been with Spar for a long time is because we have control of our own shops. We need certain products for them that we can't source locally. So we have the buying power of them to be able to be competitive for our customers. But Spar know that the Hollis's passion has always been local produce and local suppliers, and they're fully aware that comes before their requirements. So all we want to do is be able to showcase the great suppliers that we have locally. At the moment, we have all that we can fit in there, and we are unfortunately turning many away and only being able to carry a small percentage of their range. So the whole idea is to really give what people want, and what most people want is local.
Yeah, no, I suppose the point I'm getting at is that doubling the size of the shop, I would hope that there would be a chance of a lot more local produce rather than just increasing the range of Spar.
No, it's the new shop is all about local produce.
It is all about local produce.
Yes.
Just Mr. Weiner, on that, I mean, is that anything that can be conditioned, or do we have any control over that?
Yes, I mean, members could condition it, but I think it would be very difficult to construct a condition depending on exactly what it is you wanted to control. So I'll try and use an example. If you're saying that you think 50% of the produce sold on the additional floor space should be local, then we need to think about what do you mean by local and what do you mean by 50%? Is it 50% of the range? Is it 50% of the actual floor area, or is it 50% of the shelf area? What does it actually mean? Because if not, you end up with a condition that is not precise and not enforceable. So if members felt it was reasonable to control what was sold, I think you'd have to be clear that it's on the additional floor space, because I think it'd be wrong to try and restrict what's on the existing floor space. So yes, it could be done, but we need to be very precise so that everybody is clear in terms of what exactly is being, what the condition is intending to do. I'm sorry if that's probably posed more questions than it has answers, Chair.
No, I think it's not as straightforward as one would like. But no, that's fine. Councillor Kent.
I just wanted to say that I'm quite familiar with California Cross, not so familiar with this one, but they have a huge range of local produce, and that's why I choose to go there rather than driving actually into Modbury or Totnes to go to any kind of bigger store, because I know that I can get what I need from California Cross. So he does already stock a large range of local produce. I think it's
Okay. No, well, thank you for that, Councillor Kent. That's good. Any more questions, members? No? In which case, thank you very much, Mr. Hollis.
Thank you.
And,
cheers.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Located in the busy corner of Southampton, Totnes Cross Filling Station is struggling to keep up with demands of the facilities it has. The garage is an established family business which has supported and served the area for over 40 years. It now wants to continue that service by moving with the times to meet today's needs. The parish council support this application, know it's an essential service to the area, creating local employment, training students, supporting local businesses by selling their produce, and acting as a local shop for the rural community, thus preventing extended journeys to Kingsbridge, Dartmouth and Totnes. Especially in the height of the holiday season, when locals try to keep away from the hotspots, the garage keeps travelling simple and short for the locals to get their goods, but also provides a huge service to those travelling around the South Hands on holiday passing it. Yes, the increase in size has a visual impact, but there's already a visual impact with the garage and with Home Business Park just a stone's throw away. But there are still plenty of lush green fields surrounding both sites, and they're usually full of sheep and cattle. Rural businesses need to be supported and allowed to grow where there is a demand and clear support from those using it and living around them, which Totnes Cross appears to have. The South Hands is a beautiful part of the country made up of seaside and countryside. The countryside is made up of farms, converted barns, hamlets and villages, and should have the right for a rural business like Totnes Cross to grow to serve them as well as any other business in our towns and cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. Any questions for Councillor Reid at this stage? No, in which case we'll move into the debate. Who would like to go first? Councillor Kent.
Well, I'd just like to say I totally agree with Councillor Reeve, and that actually it is a really good local business, and they've served us very well during some pretty difficult times, including when we got snowed in Loddiswell and a brand new snowplough turns up and turns around and goes back the other way, whereas help from California Cross and farmers and tractors, we were able to sort of get food and everything we needed from them. So I think they're a really important part of our rural community. It's just a shame it has to be quite so big, but then you can see Morley is only just on the hill opposite, and that shows up like a what have you. It could do with some more planting around the back of there, really. But yeah, as long as there's good planting, and the entrance worries me slightly because if you're coming from Kingsbridge direction and you're turning off to go to Dartmouth, that is a bit of a fast run. So I'd be worried about the gateway being in the entrance being there.
Okay, I think highways have looked at that and don't have an objection.
But
But I mean, there's a lot of cars of that. I can prove that. Councillor Foss.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm a bit between. I heard what the ward member Helen said, and I fully agree with everything she said. But there's one or two things on the application that need tweaking, and I don't know whether they can be tweaked within this application or not. And one of them is the very fact you need a dormouse survey that hasn't been done. There's probably a bit more screening, as Councillor Kent has mentioned. But I'm very much in favour of supporting local businesses, and I think it's a family that's been there a long time, and if they say they're going to take a lot of local produce in through the shop, I think we have to take them on their word on that. I'm well aware of the other one that Councillor Kemp has mentioned, and they do carry a lot of local produce, and so will this one. I used to go past this one quite a lot, but because of where I live now, I don't go past this particular section, but I'm well aware of its size, where it is and everything else. So I'm not coming down one way or the other. There's quite a few. I'd like to hear what other members have got to say, but it's not something I want to turn down flat, but there are some issues with it that we need to sort out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foss. Councillor Powell.
I've got a lot of sympathy with the application, and I have, at the end of it, no real issue with the size of the workshop that's being planned, but I do sort of feel in agreement with the planning officer about the location. I think it moves the whole thing more intrusively up the hill. The applicant has stated that that's there for safety reasons. Do the officers have any view on whether it could be moved nearer to the existing buildings without compromising safety?
May I answer?
Yeah. Ms. House-Hansel?
I think I just wasn't aware that there were safety issues as to why it was at the top of the site, so I think it could be moved, but that isn't what we're looking at today.
My feeling is that I would support the development of this size, but not in the way it's been laid out. So my feeling is at the moment that I'm for refusal.
Okay. Members, anyone else? Councillor Rowe?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm not quite sure about the cafe, because I think the planning officer was saying there was a cafe, and Mr. Hollis said that they've taken the cafe out. Is that right?
On the plans, if we'll just go back to the plans, it shows a cafe.
There is still a cafe there. I think we would support it in principle, but I'm not sure that I could support actually what's there at present. I think perhaps it needs to go back to the drawing board to have the surveys that are needed on the dormice, and also possibility of moving the workshops nearer to the main block. I mean, I think what's proposed, if it's got a cafe and all the rest of it, it's a bit like putting a service station there. And I think it's perhaps a bit too large for the space. I'm all for supporting local business, but I think maybe they need to go back to the drawing board and just tweak a few things if that's possible. So maybe could I propose deferment?
Mr. Wyman?
Mr. Wyman, you probably could advise it better than that.
I'll come back on the development point. I was just going to, I've just, whilst members have been discussing, I've reread the ecology report. There was a preliminary ecology report, there was a second ecology report that came in earlier this year. I've just reread that, and it is my view that whilst we will need to resolve the issue, I think the dormouse issue is an issue that can be resolved quite relatively swiftly, because looking at this, I'm not persuaded there's necessarily a survey needed. They've come up with mitigation of how they would clear it in accordance with established methods, and there would be under the supervision of an ecological clerk of works. Now, I think we want our ecologists to double check this to make sure it's fine, but I think it's likely that would be fine, and it could be dealt with by a condition. So I think it would be wrong to get too concerned about the dormice issue, because I genuinely think that would be resolved. That can be resolved. In terms of a deferment, if it's a matter of going back to the drawing board, then I would suggest it probably isn't a deferment, because if it's going back to the drawing board and it has to be a new proposal, then that has to be a fresh application. So I think if it's going back to square one, I suppose, then I would say no. I think members need to make a decision on this application. You can give a clear steer that if you do decide that this application is unacceptable, but you think something else may be acceptable, you can give that as an indication. But my feeling is that this application ought to be determined to give the applicant some certainty about the feeling or the decision of the committee.
Okay,
my personal view.
Thank you, Mr. Wyman. Councillor Abbott, I'll come to you in a minute. Just on the same thread, there's this. I know I've got Councillor Panel and Councillor Rowe both want to say something on that.
I would move refusal, but with a clear indication that we're not opposed to the scale of the workshop on this size, but we are concerned about the location of it.
Okay. And Councillor Rowe?
Yeah, I would say I supported it in principle, but I'm not sure that we've got the absolute correct plans that we can approve in front of us at present.
Okay. I've got a lot of hands going up now. I'm going to go to Councillor Abbott. I'll do it in turn. I've got Councillor Reid and Councillor Taylor. Do Councillor Long, did you want to speak? Yeah. So I'm going to go Councillor Long next, then Councillor Reid, then Councillor Taylor. Councillor Abbott first.
Yeah, I see this more as a natural progression of this development and of the opportunities that have been coming out of this site. So I'm not as negative as some of you feel about it. I would also have thought that the cafe was a very nice addition, that people are going there to shop. And it is in itself a nice location. It's very obvious in the landscape because of the BP canopy that goes over the top of everything, more than the way that the buildings are sitting into the landscape. And in fact, I would propose that we would accept the planning application, so
So
contrary.
approval, you.
I'll second that.
and that's
I'll add
Sorry, that's seconded by councillor Pringle, is that?
Yeah.
So it's proposed and seconded by councillor for approval as per the officer's recommendation. Before we do that, we'll check that we've got.
Against
Against officer recommendations. But before that, we'll check with all mass, and get that all straightened out, before we take a vote on that. Where was I going to go to? Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chairman. Like I think most members, I support this in principle. I think the service to the community, the expansion there, I think as Councillor Abbott has said, is a natural expansion of a well-established business, and I think it serves the community well, and I think what they're proposing will serve the community well. I do have a problem with the fact that it could be improved, how it sits in the landscape by some movement. I understand what Mr. Hollis has said about wanting to separate those who are going to the service area from those going to the shop area, but I'm sure that could be worked out. So I think there would be an opportunity to mitigate the impact of it in the landscape with perhaps increased planting, changing the siting of it, and the landscaping could perhaps be stronger. I was interested to see that the reference to Howell Business Park, and that this is adding to a cumulative effect of building in the area. I would have said that with the business park being nearby, with the appropriate landscaping to it, it would not have really contributed greatly to the impact on the countryside there, because you've already got a fairly substantial business park and barns in the distance. So I don't think that is much of a problem. So I think I support the principle of this. I would like to have seen, when I looked at the original plans, I was concerned about the distance and the impact there in the landscape. I think it's great the amount of planting they're talking about, and that itself. I know there was comment that the area is, hedgerows and fields, but I think established woodland there would certainly contribute to the biodiversity in the area. So I think all in all, this is a proposal that I can give support to, but I do have hesitations that it could be improved.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I think Mr. Hollis has worked as best as he can with the planning officer, actually, doing and throwing, and he has reduced the size, working with her. So, he has been really trying to work and get it to the smallest that he wanted. So he has sort of done what you're sort of asking, really. He has been trying to. And also, I think when he was speaking, I think he thought that perhaps the line that was showing where the garage was going to be, that's going to do the MOTs on it, I think he thought it wasn't sort of quite portrayed quite right. It is slightly lower than what was being shown. So I don't think he thought it was high as it's not as high as it was sort of being shown on the screen. But he has been trying to work this out and work to get the best that he thinks he can work with.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think the gradient on this has been exaggerated a little bit, to be honest, because I've worked in that field, and it doesn't seem it's not that steep, because if you look at the road outside, and I think the entrance would be an improvement, because the entrance that's there now is right next to the garage, and you go into that field through that old entrance was very dangerous. I mean, I've used it over the years to cut the grass and stuff, and to come out of there was a nightmare. And to move it away from the junction would increase the safety, not make it worse. And the gradient is not that much on that field, to be honest. And I think that, and also it would be, if it wasn't there, and because they've been flooded with work now, I believe, and they would have to move, people that can't get it there would have to go into the bigger towns, Kingsbridge, Totnes, to get the same facility as they've got there. So I think the road miles and stuff would decrease, not increase. Well, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
I actually agree with Bernard on that point. That's exactly what I was thinking. But also that that little bit of land, really. You've got the industrial place there, haven't you? And then you've got a big old skyline going on with Morley's new houses up there. So I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed to expand, especially as I'd much rather it was the Hollises knowing the service they provide and knowing that they are a good service to all around. And also, if they expand that workshop, then that's potential apprenticeships for an awful lot of young kids that are, you know, needing employment. So I'd much rather it was them than Tesco's or something.
Yeah, I just caution there that obviously this is for a building, it's not for the people that are using a building. So they
Right,
could get
okay,
permission and
yeah,
sell
I
it
see
tomorrow to Tesco's, and that would still stand. We
What
wouldn't
did
have
you
any
say?
control over it.
Sorry, what did you
I
say?
said they could sell it tomorrow to Tesco's, and then so that's what I'm saying is that you
They
mustn't.
wouldn't dare.
Sorry.
They wouldn't dare.
Okay. Right, are there any, Mr. Wyman, do you want to?
Yeah, just there's been a little bit of confusion around the cafe, so I've just clarified that. The cafe use is not being proposed. The floor space that was shown for the cafe will be used as part of the shop. So it's a shop provision, and a workshop is not a cafe being proposed as part of this application. Just to make that clear. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wyman.
And can we, if this were to be, what's the word?
Approved.
Approved. If it were to be approved, then can we somehow condition it so that planting and screening, etc., all
That's all
starts
part of the
before?
landscape.
But it starts before the, you know, any other development.
Well,
So it's already maturing.
I think the trouble with that is that if you plant it and then you build, then you tend to destroy what you planted.
Yeah.
So it might not be practical.
No, I'm talking
But
about
I
the
take on board what
screening
you're
and the
saying.
hedges, etc. Thank you, Chairman.
Can I suggest the most appropriate planting condition, if you're looking at it, is that planting takes place in the first planting season after commencement. Would be normal. So you get it in as early as you can, but you've got to be careful to make sure that planting is done at an appropriate time to give it the best opportunity to take on and thrive and mature. And it is, in my view, not possible to condition that you do the planting at a certain time before you commence, because the condition doesn't bite until the development actually commences.
In which case, can we condition it to be maintained in perpetuity? All screening and woodland areas.
As part of the usual planting conditions would say that whatever goes in has to be maintained and replaced if died within a 5-year period. It's unusual to say in perpetuity, because
it's unusual time, though, isn't it?
It is, but if you put a condition on years ago and someone planted elm and then ash died back, you're then in a position where you're saying, well, you've got to maintain it. You can't maintain it because something we didn't know. So it's normal to insist it on being 5 years, and 5 years is normally enough time to make sure that whatever's planted has taken, is growing, is going to mature, and it would certainly have to be retained in perpetuity.
So it's retained in perpetuity.
Yeah,
I think that's okay. I mean, it may change, but it would have to be kept as a landscaping project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Lott.
I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Wyman, you said 5 years. I've seen 10 years stated in some others, and when you consider planting regimes, 10 years replacement for certain trees and shrubs is acceptable now. And I think as long as as you said, it's retained in perpetuity, then I think that would be a reasonable position.
Right, members. I'll just say my piece as well, because I do find this one a particularly tricky one, because I'm very, very supportive of local businesses. I think some of the arguments made about driving to and from are slightly spurious, because there are literally thousands of cars passing there every day anyway. I would argue that people don't make a special journey to go there, but would actually be it because it's on their way from A to B.
No, well, I do actually.
Yeah. So So I think in that sense, I appreciate that our spatial strategy is trying to minimise the amount of extra car traffic, but I think that any increase in car traffic would be negligible in that respect. And also for local car owners, to get an MOT, that will be the nearest MOT garage there is. And if that closes, they have to go further afield. So whereas I understand the officer's argument, I do think there's an argument. I am slightly, I have to say, concerned that we allow a multinational sort of mini market to expand, but those fears have somewhat been allayed by Mr. Hollis himself and Councillor Kemp, but it still does concern me because, as we say, that could just turn into a mini Tesco's tomorrow if it's sold.
Exactly.
And that would be a problem because that is an absolutely perfect site for a farm shop of selling local produce for all the because it is it's a hub, it's a transport hub there in a way. So I'm very torn on this one. I think the landscaping has been covered. I do think the landscaping scheme would actually improve that area. There are lots of industrial sites there. There's a big business park there already when you look at the landscape. So I don't think it's not like we're talking about virgin countryside here. This has got a semi-industrial look to it already. So I'm very torn on this application, I have to say.
Can I just add something to that?
Very quickly, you've had lots of goes.
I'm sorry, okay. Well, the whole idea of there being a shop there will actually reduce some of the congestion that's occurring in the height of the season because actually people will pull off rather than sit in the traffic queue. They'll pull off and go and get some shopping.
Maybe.
So there you go.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else got anything else to say? Councillor Reid, yes, it's your local board member, you can have the final say. What I'm going to do is we've had a vote for approval, and that's been seconded against the officer recommendation. We've had a proposal for refusal as per the officer recommendation, but that hasn't been seconded as yet. So I'll take the approval first, and before we do it, I'd like to have conditions from the planning officers, or an outline of the kind of conditions that we'd be looking at, including the Dormouse survey. Councillor Reid.
I just want to say, that garage has been there for 70 years, I think Mr. Wallace said. It's been in their family for 45 plus years. Home Business Park wasn't there 70 years ago. And it really must be very hard for Mr. Hollis to see that site being built, and yet he is struggling to expand his business. And I think that's, I wouldn't say unfair, but there's a lot of business up at Howell Park. They've been allowed to grow and expand, and I think it's only fair that the Hollis family should be allowed to do the same on their business that's been there for 70 years. Yeah, and been a terrific service to the rural area.
Okay, that's good point, well made. Right, in which case we will go to the vote. Oh yeah, sorry, conditions. Yeah, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. Thank you.
Firstly, Chairman, I think before we go to the vote, the proposal secretary will need to set out reasons for going against the office recommendation. And my suggestion would be that the vocal approval would be subject to the resolution of if I just say the Dormouse issue, I think we're talking about, I'm convinced that could be resolved, and I think that would end up as a condition. And the conditions I think we would absolutely need, but not limited to, but then it would be delegated for the conditions to be agreed with proposer, seconder, and yourself.
Myself and the local ward member.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would be definitely around landscaping and screening.
Yeah.
Definitely around the carbon reduction measures that Ms. Houselander referred to in terms of the heat pump and the
just whether
solar panel.
take it to the plan.
Yeah, so just make sure it's in accordance
Yeah.
with. I think we need to think about something around external lighting of the new buildings.
Yeah.
And if there's anything else that members...
Members, anything else that you feel that should be conditioned here? We've got landscaping, lighting, door mice,
And solar panels, etc.
yeah,
That's all in there,
And
isn't
then
it?
the other one, Chair, is you mentioned about local bodies and whether you wanted to try and phrases.
Well, I'd love to put something in there that you know, if for some unforeseen reason that it has to change hands, whatever, that anyone coming in would in some way have a...
Sorry, Chairman, to interrupt. Are you looking effectively for a condition that ensures that if this moves on to somebody else, their retail model is effectively carried on by somebody else, so it's tied up in that. In which case, I think, to be fair and reasonable to the applicant, I think we probably need to have an understanding of what proportion of the floor area or what proportion of the range of goods sold are sourced locally and what does local mean. I think it would then be reasonable to phrase a condition that would align with what his current business model or planned business model is, taking that forward.
Okay.
But I think we need to have an understanding first of what it is they're actually intending to do or what they do. If not, I think it'd be unfair on the current applicant. So if we have that, if the application is approved, we can have that conversation with the applicant and then we'll phrase a condition to come to members to be authorised or approved, agreed.
Well, so delegated to
yes, I think it has to be delegated to
proposer, seconder, I'd like the ward member and
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm very happy with that. That allays a lot of my fears with the local produce on it.
I'm not.
No, I do.
Provided the applicant doesn't come back and say, well, actually, it's only 5%, of course. I mean,
well, I mean, you know, even 5% is 5%. I mean,
It's a much larger portion than 5%.
Yeah, no, okay.
Local stuff that he has there, absolutely vouch.
Right. So those are the kind of conditions, the headline conditions that will be. The detail will be given to it. It'll be delegated to myself, Councillor Abbott, Councillor Pringle, Councillor Reeve, and Mr. Weimer.
I think we need to go. Sorry, Chair, I think we need to go back through just to see if there are any other conditions we need.
Okay.
Just what I just said about they are definitely the main headline conditions. I can't say that's necessarily an exhaustive list.
Okay.
But obviously, any additional conditions we will come to you with.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Right, members, are you clear what you'd be voting for if you vote for approval? Mr. Weimer just wanted reasons why from proposed and seconder. I think we need to be clear on this, just so that we understand why this would be an exception or goes against officer recommendation, let's say. Councillor Abbott, Councillor Pringle.
Okay, on the reasons for refusal, only the first three remain extant, and communication.
He's just going through the list of what was there.
Yeah. The reasons for refusal.
Yeah.
And Councillor Abbott's going to say why he takes a different view.
And my argument is on number one, that it's not of a scale that would lead to additional trips. It is a natural growth in the process, and so I'm just arguing that these SPTs and one TTV are, I would argue, on the other side about their relevance in this.
So you're just saying that there wouldn't be extra journeys because their journeys would already be made, and indeed if they couldn't expand it, the people would have to drive further anyway, a lot of them. So actually it's probably a net reduction in journeys.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
I thought you were.
I apologise for my continual inability. On the second one, well, I think it's necessary.
So you think the benefits of it mean that it's...
Yeah, that's it. And the third one. I don't. Of course, this is subjective, but this incongruity is in relationship to the more major development up the hill, and I think to a certain extent it's hidden away behind the filling station in that it's up the secondary road, if I'm allowed to say that, or road to Dartmouth, and also I think the access is improved because that access from the Dartmouth road seems to me to be much safer, being slightly up the hill and something that is designed for the number of vehicles that are going to be there. So overall, as a summary, I just think this is an improvement on the current situation.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Pringle, did you want to add anything?
No,
No, you're all right with it. Yeah. Right, we'll move to the vote then. So this has been proposed and seconded for approval against offer of the recommendation. We've had the headline conditions that would be in place. If it is approved, they've been delegated to a number of us. So can I have a show of hands for those in favour of approval, please?
See them there, I'm afraid.
I think it's the council. All hasn't voted in favour. And those against? Yes. So that application has been approved. Thank you very much, members. Do you want to move straight on to the next application? Or do you want a quick 5-minute comfort break? Okay, 5-minute comfort break. Be back here by 12:30, very latest. Please.
Chairman, can I have a quick word?
Yeah, of course, yeah.